I was cut off on finishing my story from the previous live stream. I was cut off. No big deal. Not a big deal. There's a line. Is there a line on the top of the screen? What is going on? Thank you for watching. John Houston here. I genuinely don't know why there's a line on the top of my screen. But we're going to continue anyway. Line or no line. I don't know if it's visible for you. Don't know what's going on. But going to continue the ghost stories. It originally was talking about Will Smith. I was going to go back on Will Smith. I took his name out of the title because it doesn't seem to matter. It's a spiritual discussion on ghosts, spirits. That's what spiritual means, spirit-based. It also means heavenly based. You know, spiritual matters go beyond spirit entities, but it's just 99 out of 100 times when someone says, "Oh, that's very spiritual, man." It's actually not spiritual. It's the exact opposite of spiritual. I'm just playing my Corners of Rooms footage behind me because I was talking about my Corners of Rooms experiment and I got cut off. What happened was I did have a dinner appointment. I had a delicious truffle pinza, super delicious. Never had truffle in my life, all right? So I don't go out and have truffle 24/7. Literally the first time I've ever had truffles in my life. I don't know if you've seen the movie Pig by Nick Cage. Not by Nick Cage. Well, I think it is produced by Nick Cage. So you could say it's by Nick Cage. With Nick Cage, pretty good movie. Nicolas Cage's character, he loves his pig, and his pig gets abducted. That's the entire premise. It's a truffle pig. So I was talking about Will Smith in the last video and how, Spirit probably said, go hit that guy. And that's something that I'm sure would have crossed his mind, a thought that he would have had, but he wouldn't have acted on that impulse in a million scenarios. But that one scenario, he actually acted on it. Yikes. I feel bad for both parties involved. And now, I just read the news, Will Smith has resigned from the Academy. Being an Academy member isn't that huge. There's literally thousands of Academy members. Rob Schneider is probably a member, as I said in the last video. And so you don't have to be too prestigious. I know a guy who won an Academy Award for a short film. He made a short, probably 10 minutes long, with G.I. Joes. Now, I don't know him super personally, but he went to an organization I went to, and so I met him on a number of occasions. I went camping. I think he was a scout leader when I was in the Boy Scouts. So I do know this guy, and he won an Academy Award. And so he could apply to be in the Academy, and he would become a member in 1 second. But that's pretty rare. To win an Academy Award is pretty rare. But the award is a lot more prestigious than being an Academy member. There are thousands of Academy members, not too many Academy Award winners. To be a winner, Will Smith doesn't want to give it up. I can see why. A negative entity probably whispered in his ear. Denzel Washington, being spiritually inclined, told Will Smith, at the height of your success, that's when the devil comes for you. That's a pretty strong spiritual message to share with Will Smith at that moment of his life. So not everyone in Hollywood is spiritually dead. I think Denzel Washington, I give some props to him. Man, even I wouldn't think of such a thing to say. That's the perfect thing to have shared. I know I got 0 viewers right now, no big deal. So my story got cut off, and I haven't shared this live stream with anyone, so no one knows that I'm even doing it. No big deal. You'll see the rebroadcast. Check it out when you got the time. My Corners of Rooms experiment. Why did I do this experiment in 2018? It wasn't this video I saw. Whether I saw this one video or not means nothing. I still would have done the experiment because I had the idea for this experiment for years. Because in 2011, I noticed spirits bothering me in that room. They had a favorite corner. So ever since I recognized on the spiritual level that negative entities choose a corner of a room to occupy, ever since I learned that information, I've wanted to conduct a Corners of Rooms experiment. It was inevitable. It would have happened anyway. So, 2018, I watch a video. The kid turns on the REM pod for 10 seconds and then turns off the REM pod and then talks for 15 minutes about how ghosts are fake and how ghosts don't exist and how REM pod and ghost hunting equipment doesn't work and it's not real. But he didn't give any effort and put any effort into the device or into the investigation. He turned it on and, like a coward, was freaked out by the concept that what if it works, and then he turned it off, and then he talked about how ghosts are fake for 15 minutes. That video prompted me to want to buy a REM pod and do the experiment properly by turning it on for an hour and talking about ghosts for an hour. What happened was a spirit entity was tempted and most definitely was negative. And how do I know the spirit entity that turned on my REM pod in this Corners of Rooms experiment? How do I know he was negative? Because 24 hours after this experiment, a negative entity walked through my body we're talking approximately 12 a.m. I turned out the lights. It might have been 12:08 a.m., somewhere around there. Not exactly on the dot, but it was pretty close to 24 hours later. I notice on my phone, I think it says 1 a.m. So it might have been 23 hours later. But approximately 24 hours later, I'm not doing the experiment the next day. I'm just turning out the lights and going to bed. So this is 24 hours approximately after a spirit Corners of Rooms investigation in my room in 2018. I turn off the lights, I go to bed, and very prominently, very obviously, very strongly, does a spirit entity walk through my body from left to right. So starting at the left side of my body, through my torso to the right side of my body, and then through it, and it continued out of my body. So it didn't linger, it didn't stay, but it walked fairly slow through my body, and it was the second most powerful negative entity I've ever felt in my life. So it was definitely a high-ranking demon that walked through my body. 24 hours after I conducted this very experiment. You can see this experiment on my channel. This experiment caused me to lose some internet friends. They were freaked out by it because they were such die-hard atheists that they couldn't get it. They couldn't wrap around their brain. Why is he making this? This isn't entertaining. This isn't interesting. It's not entertaining. It's not interesting. I don't get the angle. What's the motivation? Motivation is truth, and it's not entertaining. It was an actual experiment of actual scientific scientifically minded. I would say it's on the level of Dr. John Dee before he got a partner, Edward Kelly. By himself, I'm sure Dr. John Dee had a crystal ball, had a black mirror, probably conducted a few experiments on his own to the point where he realized spirits exist and it's a real phenomenon, but he realized he didn't have this spiritual gift of being able to see these entities or communicate with them super clearly. So he needed a medium. He needed Edward Kelly. But this is a legitimate spirit investigation, the Corners of Rooms experiment in 2018. 24 hours or 23 hours, give or take, after the experiment, a negative entity walked through my body. Negative entity walked through my torso, left to right. Why is that important? Because there are consequences for running spirit investigations in your room by yourself, in the corner of your room. Grave consequences. There's a guru on YouTube, probably the number one guru of YouTube, Sad Guru. And Sad Guru, as much as he's a celebrity and can be comical at times, is definitely a smart guy. He's definitely an intelligent guy. He's definitely someone who holds that guru status very well because he has a lot of good advice. But he definitely has his own religious perspectives. But one thing I know of a surety is true with Sad Guru is he experienced the same thing I experienced before I did. Sad Guru said he was in his backyard, and this is before he became a guru, okay? This is when he was younger. He said he was just playing a game with himself in his backyard by himself. Kind of like how you could say I was playing a game with this Corners of Rooms experiment. What Sad Guru did in his backyard by himself is he pointed at a fruit tree in his backyard. He pointed at it and just kind of like pretended he was shooting down the fruit, and the fruit fell. And he's like, wow, what are the chances? That's a coincidence. I'm pointing at it, pretending to have the power to cause it to fall, and it actually fell. He then pointed at a different fruit, and it fell. He then pointed at a different fruit, and it fell. He then pointed at a different fruit, and it fell. He's like, whoa, do I have supernatural powers? What's going on? This is freaky. He didn't believe it, but he knew it was supernatural, out of the ordinary. He knew it was paranormal. So he got a friend or a neighbor. He got someone to watch it. He got someone to observe it. Sad Guru, when he was younger, before he became famous, he noticed he had the ability to point at a fruit on a tree and the fruit would fall on command. So he got a neighbor or a friend to observe this. He said, look what I can do. Check this out. Observe this. Watch what's going on. I want someone else to see this. Sad Guru does it again. He points at the fruit, it falls. 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 Who knows, maybe every piece of fruit on the tree. But the neighbor, the friend, he's like, what the freak? This is intense. What is going on? And Sad Guru, whose name I don't know what he went by in his youth, but he's like, wow, that's interesting. So he had an audience. He shared his power with the audience. Maybe his friend who observed it and him had a discussion on what's going on. They probably realized something occult is taking place. And Sad Guru, in retelling of the story, says it was most definitely an occult power that was tempting him. And it was like the first time this temptation had ever happened in his life. And Sad Guru said he decided to never do that again, to never use the ability. He knew something else was pulling down the apple, that it wasn't a power from his hands or from any mystical power he was born with. He knew it was a negative entity pulling those apples down in some weird display of temptation. Now, too many people attempted with magical powers, okay? So it's a very out there story that many people don't believe in, okay? I can understand the perspective. But I believe that story to be 100% true. Why? Why would I believe Sad Guru's outlandish story of him pointing at fruit on a tree and on command it falling, and then him bringing someone to observe this, and then it happening in front of them? Why would I believe that story? Because Sad Guru said, not long after the incident of the telling the fruit to fall on command and it falling on command, not long after the incident, I don't know if it was a day or if it was a couple days. I don't know if it was an hour or a couple hours. In my case, it was about 23 hours later. A negative entity walked through my body as I was trying to go to sleep, left to right. Sadhguru said, after he did this fruit falling from the tree experiment with someone observing it, he said, Sadhguru said he felt a negative entity walk through his body. And he knew immediately it was of a negative nature, that it was not good, that it was occult, that he should stay away from it. So exactly mirroring my story of my Corners of Rooms experiment 2018, approximately 24 hours after I conducted this experiment in 2018, a negative entity walked through my body as I was trying to go to sleep, left to right. And Sadhguru was seemingly tempted by a supernatural ability to point at a fruit on a tree, and on command, from very far away, it fall down. He knew a negative entity was doing it, but he received further confirmation a negative entity was doing it when that negative entity walked through his body shortly after the experiment. And so I have a kinship with Sadhguru from that perspective. And then I mentioned it to someone and they're like, he's not my guru. He's not my guru either. But he has a guy who has a story that mirrors and matches such an unusual story, such an out there story, such an unbelievable story. But I experienced the exact same thing with a different thing. But this corner of room is just the fruit. And more specifically, this corner in my room is the tree. And the ghost hunting devices in my room are the fruit. And the devices being manipulated are no different than the fruit falling on Sadhguru's tree. It's the exact same scenario taking place. After I showed the world, even if it was just 500 people, even if it was just 100 people, it doesn't matter how many views I got on this. It wasn't very many. I got like 1,000 views? It wasn't very many views, okay? It's not about the views. Sadhguru just had one guy with him, just one person, and he seemingly had the same consequence of a negative entity walking through his body. He didn't have 1 million views of him doing this, knocking down the apples or whatever the fruit was on his tree. He just had one guy observe it, and he faced the same consequence of a negative entity walking through his body. Spirits exist. That's just one instance where spirits have bothered me, but it's based on the consequence of conducting a Corners of Rooms experiment. This is my Corners of Rooms experiment. It's called Mysterialis Episode 1, Corners of Rooms Experiment 1. You can find it on my channel. It's still on the channel. In my book I'm writing on ghost hunting, I definitely have a chapter on this Corners of Rooms experiment and the consequences and exactly what I just mentioned. So watching that video of the guy say, ghost hunting equipment doesn't work, ghosts aren't real, after turning on a REM pod for 10 seconds, I was like, wow, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. But at the same time, I could say I didn't know what I was doing. But at least I sought truth and focused on truth. Whereas the guy turning on a ghost hunting device for 10 seconds and then turning it off and talking about it for 15 minutes, that guy does not focus on truth. That guy does not seek truth. I don't know who that guy is. He had very low views, very low subscribers. I didn't bookmark his page or anything. I might have bookmarked his page back in 2018, 2017 when I saw it. But I probably lost that bookmark by now. No big deal. Spirits exist. Spirits are real. You know, views and likes and clicks and comments, they're not particularly important to me. Speaking the truth, sharing the truth is more important to me. Perhaps one day I will create an archive so my videos can be not deleted from this platform. How do you welcome a spirit? I have a question. How do you welcome a spirit? Well, I personally don't want to welcome spirits, but if you're talking about on a ghost investigation, in that case, I could say I have welcomed spirits on ghost investigations. I personally would never want to do it in my house. I just talked about my corners of rooms experiment, how I would never conduct a ghost investigation in my house ever again. So I would never want to welcome a spirit in my house ever again. But as far as on the road, as long as I'm X number of miles away from where I live, I pull out a device. Let's say I pull out an audio recorder like this one, or an audio recorder like this one. How would you know if there's one there presently? Okay, I could talk about that. But to answer your first question, how would I welcome a spirit? You know, spirits are invisible, and a huge portion of the time you're not going to know if an area is occupied by a spirit whatsoever. I did in my last video mention how, you know, I'm somewhat sensitive, and so I was able to go against the rules of the Winchester Mystery House on no ghost hunting equipment allowed, because everyone's body is potentially a piece of ghost hunting equipment. I think every person is born with the ability to distinguish the atmosphere. Have you ever entered a house and something was off, something felt creepy, something was wrong? Well, that is a common indication there's a spirit lurking in the corner of a room. If something feels off, wrong, and creepy immediately, it could just be the cuisine the owner cooks is of a particularly strange fragrance, and you don't like the smell of the place. But if you spiritually, on a spiritual level, feel something is creepy, something is really wrong, there's probably a negative entity hanging out in the corner. I went to a occult bookstore slash just witch supply depot, if you will, called Pan's Pipes or Pan Pipes in Los Angeles. And most definitely I sensed the presence of a negative entity just hanging out in the corner. But I didn't walk through it. It didn't walk through me. I just sensed it. I ignored it, but I took some pictures and I walked around. More specifically, Tombstone, Arizona. I could tell you a story about Tombstone, Arizona, but let me tell you how I welcome a spirit. So I'm investigating. I'm walking around. I'm like, are there any spirits present? Can you make your presence known? I come in peace. I will leave in peace. I say things like that. And if a spirit's present, they're going to make their presence known as long as they see that you're genuine and have honest intent. That tends to attract spirits to a great degree. If you just earnest and honest and genuine and you're not trying to disrespect a location. Well, I was bothered in the year 2011. You just said spirit comes at night or something to that effect. I don't have any great experience with salt. I've never used salt. I've heard about salt. I probably first heard about salt 20 years ago. And my first immediate reaction to hearing about using salt to protect a house or a room, my first immediate reaction was, I'm going to choose to not go that route. I think anyone's free to use salt if you want to use it. It's up to your own judgment. It's all over the place. But in 2011, a negative entity bothered me in a room. Yeah, I think it was 2 negative entities, specifically poltergeist negative beings that had the ability to move objects. And they only showed up in the evening hours, only, exclusively, strictly, almost like they didn't have authority to bother me in the daylight hours. But at dusk, I would say dusk is when they started to have the ability to bother me. And probably around 4 a.m. is when they stopped, maybe 4:30 a.m. I don't know what the cutoff was because they bothered me at different times. It was usually 6 p.m. to 3 a.m., 6:50 p.m. to 3:50 a.m. The cutoff was around that range. That was those particular entities. I don't use salt because if you're putting a bunch of salt on the ground and then you're using a bunch of sagebrush in the corners of your house, your entire environment is not going to be surrounded by a bunch of salt and sage. I think if you clean an area, open up a window, sweep it, clean it, make it nice and neat and orderly, you don't need to smell sage and you don't need to have a bunch of salt laying around. That's just my personal beliefs, but the vibe, just to illustrate the vibe. I don't have too many detailed stories like this one, except for Winchester Mystery House. When I stepped in a room and I felt a spirit, I walked through a spirit. At the Winchester Mystery House, the second room, which is a tiny hallway with huge drawers to the left, I stepped through a spirit. I would say 999 times out of 1,000 times, we're talking 999 times out of 1,000 times, the spirit walks through me. And only one time did I walk through the spirit. That means the spirit stood there and willingly allowed the tourists, the people who paid for admission, to go on the Winchester Mystery House tour, and it purposefully stood in a tiny hallway room while all the single file tourists walked through the spirit. The difference between me and the 500 other tourists, I don't know if it was 500. Our tour was probably 100 people, to be honest. It was probably close to 100. There might have been 95 people. There might have been 75 people. There might have been 150 people. I didn't count. I don't go around counting groups of people, but yeah, it could have been as many as 100 people. It's hard to say. It could have been as small as 50 people. I don't know the exact numbers, but I can tell you this: not a single other human in the entire group noticed there was a negative entity standing in the middle of this room. Not a single other human being noticed. I immediately noticed. I stepped my right foot first into this tiny room and immediately felt the negative presence. And then I walked, and it felt like I was walking through just sludge and disgustingness. And then after I was out of the tiny room, the feeling was gone. The negative feeling was totally gone. It was only in a tiny space. What the negative entity was doing was it was assessing information on every single person that entered the place. Pretty smart demon, if you ask me. Now, you just asked about hot and cold. These questions are all over the place. Let me just go to the Tombstone, Arizona story. I haven't told this too many times. I might have told this story once, so it's a pretty rare story. I just went to a regular store in Tombstone. It's on the same side of the road as the Crystal Palace. It's a little bit down from the Crystal Palace. It's a corner store. So here's the Crystal Palace. It's a saloon. And this it's kind of a gift shop, but it's really just a shop because it's not normal gifts. It's kind of expensive stuff. So here's the Crystal Palace, a very famous saloon where the shot of shot glasses, that terminology was invented at the Crystal Palace Saloon. That's how famous these places are in Tombstone, Arizona. You go down the road a little bit, on the same, I think it might have been on the same block, or could have been one block down. There is a gift shop. It's really just a shop with expensive, there's some Native American dolls in there. There's some belt buckles, some artwork, just some, we have just the typical artwork of the Southwest. Expensive pieces, not too many cheap pieces. I guess a couple cheap pieces, but it's more of an expensive store with just, $100 items here and there. And so I'm just looking at this stuff I'm not going to buy. I'm just looking around. I'm with someone. We're just checking it out. And I've been in this store probably 5 times before. So I knew what was here. Nothing too surprising. So I walk around the store. I'm looking at the Native American dolls, thinking, isn't it illegal for these dolls to be sold outside the tribe? That's pretty much the thought that was in my head. Because certain tribes have certain really strict rules. At least I heard that. I don't know if this is the case, okay? So I'm just looking at these Native American dolls, and then I walk to the corner with sort of a stairway, and the stairway is kind of blocked by like paintings. They're selling just Southwestern painting artwork and whatnot. And I felt a really weird vibe. Not necessarily a spirit walked through me, just immediately a negative resonance when I walked to that corner. And I felt so impressed that I walked up to the shopkeep lady and I said, wow, I just felt something really negative in that corner. I said to her, are there any ghost encounters in that corner or any history in that corner? And she said, well, come to think of it, there was a ghost hunting crew team that was here, and they took photos, and the only evidence they found was a photo of a ghost in that corner. I was like, whoa. And I don't even think this crew was on TV. I think it was just local, small time, because she showed me the photo, and it was like I think it was a night vision photo with, it just looked like a blob of white. Not a human shape, just a blob of white. It's kind of like a purple photo, so it might have been a full spectrum. And just a blob of white was in the corner. I was like, wow, that's pretty freaky. So it confirmed to me that this negative resonance I felt was a real thing, that it wasn't fake. She showed me a photo of an anomaly. Very interesting. So hot and cold. Hot and cold is one of those cliche things you hear all the time. Now, I'm kind of on the fence of hot and cold. I guess more lately, in the past year, because my house has drafts. See, this house has drafts. The drafts are so strong in this house that the closet door with the brooms right down here opens on its own. And it's not a ghost. It's literally the latch is broken and the front door and the garage has drafts and it pushes that door open. So that's just some backstory of why maybe in the past 2 years I felt more of this cold stuff. But most definitely, if I'm thinking about spirits, talking about spirits, watching a show on ghosts, I have felt some cold go around my body. Could just be drafts. But most definitely, in some ghost investigations, I have felt cold, but not as much as other investigators. I focus on the spiritual, when a spirit walks through me, sense. I went to the OK Corral. I stepped 10 feet into the OK Corral. I'm looking at this corral with some antique wagons, and a spirit walked through my body. So I'm noticing things on a spiritual level. I think the more common level is people feeling a temperature change. And that's definitely a thing spirits can do. Spirits can definitely manipulate the temperature enough where I want to get a couple pieces of hot and cold reading devices. It's definitely a legitimate avenue where you can detect spirits. But as legitimate as it is, drafts exist. And it would be pretty hard to prove it's not a draft. I don't have open windows anywhere around here, but I still get drafts. There's a doggy door, which causes drafts. There's just the garage and just the ceiling underneath the front door can definitely cause drafts. And I don't see hot and cold as being the strongest indication of a spirit. And I haven't sensed it, I've felt it too many times. To the point where I think it's an over compensation for a lack of other type of evidence perhaps that people focus on, or maybe they don't have the spiritual ability. I guess not everyone has a spiritual ability, but if you're holding a static meter and static is floating around intelligently and static is going off on this static meter, and you have an EMF meter and electromagnetic field is going off, and you can ask yes or no questions and the thing goes off, that goes beyond hot and cold. Drafts can float everywhere, but intelligent static doesn't float everywhere. Intelligent electromagnetic fields do not float everywhere. I saw this one ghost show where this guy, he was holding the EMF meter up to the walls to make sure there weren't wires in the walls. And then he like finds a outlet and it goes off. And he's like, look at that, that's a false reading. See, as you can see, EMF doesn't work. False reading on that wire and the outlet. The guy didn't have any knowledge of electromagnetic field and spirits. He didn't have any knowledge on how electromagnetic field devices work and how spirits set them off. He was so doubtful and skeptical of EMF meters that I almost saw him as some type of full-blown denier of spirits, denier of ghosts. So you're gonna come across the extremely skeptical ghost hunters who don't even believe it. I don't know why they ghost hunt. I don't know why they ghost investigate if they don't believe ghosts exist. But and my answers aren't going to be super popular. Okay. There's a guy named Raymond Bayless. His answers were more popular than mine, but he investigated poltergeists for a good portion of his life. He dedicated a lot of his life to the investigation of poltergeist entities. He did believe in the conclusion that young people had poltergeists connected to them due to some reason. The common tragic this and common tragic that. I 1000% disagree with that because I was in my full adult years when I rented a room where 2 poltergeist entities started bothering me. Full grown adult years. And so I didn't have any tragic event as anything of a youth, and they weren't really attached to me. It was just a 6-month test and trial. So it goes totally against everything he talked about in all of his books. Yet he was a poltergeist expert. I live remotely close to Santa Barbara to the point where I do want to visit. I know the lighting is very poor up here in my loft, but The Spirit of the Big Yellow House was written by someone that they worked at the Big Yellow House. The Big Yellow House, I think, was a restaurant, maybe a hotel. I don't know in what years it was one or both or the other, but I know I drove past it 100 times and I didn't know what it was. But it was apparently a hotel or a restaurant, and before that, it was the Spiritist headquarters for a religion that worshipped, if you will, through seances and mediumship, the ancestors of the past by communicating them with Ouija boards, communicating with them through seances, communicating with them through tapping and rapping of tables. You know, this is like an 1800 religion where some people took it dead seriously to the point where they worshipped spirits. Not necessarily on the level where they're bowing down and giving them gifts, but they're dedicating sessions hours long where they're just talking to spirits. Can you rap and tap that table for us, please? And instead of going to a church where you sit down and read hymns, they're going to a church and asking spirits to rap on and tap and levitate tables. So that's definitely one of the more bizarre religions in the United States history. So the Spiritist, spiritualism is what it was later changed to. But before it was called spiritualism, it was called spiritism. To this day, if you type in spiritism, it'll correct you and say, oh, did you mean this or that? I focus on spiritism because spiritualism to this day is a very generic term. People will say, oh, I have a lot of spiritualism. And they're not talking about spiritism. So that's why I like to use the word spiritism, because there's no confusion. Spiritism is only one thing. It's not multiple things. But this is the headquarters for the California Spiritism movement. It It was in Summerland. Summerland is a very tiny group. It's a very tiny area. What I'm trying to say is it's smaller than a city, smaller than a town. It's literally just a couple buildings north of Santa Barbara. No, south of Santa Barbara. Okay, south of Santa Barbara. Sometimes I get the north and south mixed up. It's south of Santa Barbara. So between Santa Barbara and Los Angeles, before you hit Ventura, you're going to hit Summerland. And you blink, you won't even see it because it's just a couple buildings. But Summerland, I'm close enough to it. I would say I'm probably an hour away from this place, 1 hour. And during the quarantine height, 2020 and 2021, I believe it was closed down. And it was possibly closed down before that. I know it exchanged hands because someone started painting it. That usually means someone bought it. So now the Big Yellow House is white. Someone painted it white. So I drove past the Big Yellow House for like 20 years, and it was yellow. I was like, wow, there's a Big Yellow House. It's yellow. And someone painted it white. So whatever, but it kind of defeats the purpose. No, it's not the Big Yellow House. It's the Big White House. But spirit investigations were conducted. I'm going to do a full book review of this book. It's probably one of the more detailed encounters of the different spirits. What happened was someone was working. They might have been a waiter. They might have been a waitress. They were working at the Big Yellow House. They heard ghost stories from locals that visited the place, lived in the area, to the point where they asked every guest, have you heard about the ghost stories? And they created this book. They put all the stories together. Very cool idea. I'm glad they held that history together in one book because I would have never known. I heard fleetingly online that there's some ghost stories associated with it, but I never knew it was the headquarters of the California Spiritist movement. So that would create a permanent portal to the location. Kind of like the Winchester Mystery House. Sarah Winchester conducted seances in the middle of the house. She actually had a seance room designated as a seance room for a seance room, built to be a seance room. It was exactly next to her bedroom. So here's Sarah Winchester's bedroom. Here's the seance room, one over. Like instead of a closet, it's a seance room. Pretty freaky. I did watch the 2 Ghost Adventures episodes at the Winchester Mystery House. They had an investigation. They went back a couple of years later and did it again because they're a famous TV crew on the Travel Channel. Of course, they have access, whereas no one else can bring cameras into, let alone ghost hunting equipment into the place. But it's good tourism. It's good promotion. So they allowed it. And probably the coolest thing, evidence-wise, that the crew captured, I don't know if it was on the first or the second visit, I kind of get them jumbled up in my head, would have been they're sitting in the seance room and they're just recording, and you can hear clear as day, like a voice come from the corner of the room, in the seance room. Clear as day. I think it sounds like a kid or a young lady, like clearly talking. It's an EVP of a spirit. It's full-blown, super clear. And it wasn't the cast or the crew of the Ghost Adventures dudes. It was clearly a spirit. Pretty freaky stuff. And then they had a hand appear and disappear. I believe the hand was near one of the stairways that led nowhere. Pretty freaky stuff. But Sarah Winchester conducting seance after seance at 12 a.m. Every night at 12 a.m. she would conduct a seance. And so if you conduct a seance in your house every night at 12 a.m. in a seance room, you're going to be messed up for the rest of your life. That's freaky stuff. I did it a couple times in 2018 at the last place I lived at. And it didn't mess me up for life or anything. I was seeking evidence. And what I came to the conclusion of was, yes, I got some evidence, but no one believed it, and they all thought it was entertainment. And they thought it was bad entertainment. Yeah, I understand. that you can't consider it entertainment. But let me give you an example of the Ghost Adventures crew dudes. I had a live stream where I put Ghost Adventures crew reaction to their Halloween special. Remember that Halloween? I don't know if you saw it, but the Ghost Adventures crew had a Halloween special. They built it up and promoted it for like months. That they're finally going to open up the Dybbuk box at the Haunted Museum in Las Vegas. So Zach Bagans is going to open up the Dybbuk box and see what happens. And I put that in the title, Ghost Adventures crew reaction to the Halloween special. And I know for a fact, okay, a member of the Ghost Adventures crew watched some of my live stream. No joke, no exaggeration. Probably Zach Bagans or one of his crew members watched at least a couple minutes of my live stream. Because I put their name in the title. They might have wanted to see if I'm bootlegging their show, because I'm sure some people do that. And that video got a couple thousand views from people looking for the episode to watch a free bootleg copy, which I would have never done in a million years. I was just giving my take on the episode. What happened was Zach Bagans is asking a rabbi, should I open the Dybbuk box? Is it safe? And the rabbi's like, I don't know. Don't ask me. I have no idea, dude. And it kind of threw off the momentum of the entire show, where the whole show kind of unraveled and kind of became a meme, and people were making fun of it because at the last minute they had to get a different rabbi that didn't know anything about the Dybbuk box. But he said, sure, he'll be there for spiritual guidance or whatever the case. But he was really matter of the fact, and he didn't really buy into the Dybbuk box being anything real. And it kind of put a negative spin on the whole Dybbuk box Halloween special. And somewhere on the show, someone said something about being off script. And it made it seem like the whole show was fake. And I got a couple questions in the live stream asking me, do you think Ghost Adventures is fake? And my response was this. My response was, well, there's a lot of flashy stuff going on. Like, there's Aaron, who is over the top a cartoon character going, whoa, what the F was that, man? Oh, bleep, 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 whoa. He plays that role of the over-the-top cartoon character, and he's encouraged to do that and encouraged to react like that because that's what kids like to watch. That's what adults that have the mentality of kids like to watch. It doesn't mean all of it's fake. It just means, yes, they do overact. But unlike some other crews who were caught faking evidence, I said in that live stream that I personally, if you look beyond the overacting, I personally believe the Ghost Adventures crew is legit. I think they do try their best to get evidence that's authentic. I think they try to present the facts and the truth. But because it's entertainment, they got to throw a bunch of special effects. They got to throw a bunch of sound effects. They got to pay big money for this music they play, this creepy, dramatic music they're playing. They got to encourage the staff to overreact, and to the point where they're like cutting off the spirits. The spirits are like, oh, we're going to share some important information with you. And the other guy's like, whoa, what the F was that? And the spirit's trying to talk, and all you can hear is the guy saying what the F was over and over and over. If you have a guy saying what the F was that 1,000,000 times, you're going to destroy the evidence. But if there is any, But the reaction to one of the Ghost Adventures crew members, I think it was Zach Bagans personally, seeing my live stream and me saying I think it's true. I personally think if you look beyond the BS, that there is true investigation taking place. It's kind of hard to see it because it is entertainment focused. Not to compare with me, because I'm just a tiny nothing YouTube channel, but I'm evidence focused. I put entertainment on the back seat to evidence. I put entertainment on, okay, I'll throw some music on here occasionally, but most of my videos on ghost investigating, I'm not playing any music in the background. I'm trying to listen for EVPs. So there'll be 40 minutes of no music, and then it'll be me explaining something for 10 seconds, and sure, maybe I'll put some music behind that. But I have entertainment as a backseat, always truth and just unedited clips of what I was able to record, audio or video, whatever the case, as a top priority. So Zach Bagans, I believe, watched my video. Why? How do I know this? Because a couple weeks after that live stream, I was contacted by the lady who is the casting director of Zach Bagans' ghost shows, the many various plethora. Zach Bagans produces like 20 different ghost shows, 20 different. How do I know? Because after I was contacted by this lady, I started Googling what's going on. Is this lady legit? She said, we want to audition you for a potential role for a ghost hunting show. This was 2018. This was November of 2018. Was it November? No, because it was after the Halloween special. Wait, October, November. Yeah, it was November. It was November 2018. So I did the Halloween special live stream, obviously October 31st, and as early as like 1 week later, might have been a full 2 weeks later, but it was before December. It was November 2018. I was contacted by a legitimate casting director who works for the Travel Channel, and I thoroughly researched to make sure she was legit, because this channel, I wouldn't expect that's real, you know. I've had 100 emails, if not 500 emails from 500 fraudsters trying to steal my YouTube revenue, even though I make like $100 every 6 months. This channel makes like $200 a year in a good year. This channel makes nothing. But I've had easily 100 guys try to steal my AdSense by trying to sign me up to a fake YouTube revenue team. Oh, can you just give us your login and password? We're going to make your channel super successful. I check out their super successes, and there's one subscriber with 1 view. If they can't even make themselves successful, they're not going to make me successful. So I've never signed up for any of those. But this lady was 100% legit. I still have her contact information. I never bothered her after the audition, but I auditioned for her via email, via a phone call, and then via a FaceTime audition over my iPhone. So I did go through the 3 auditions, if you will, and like classic Hollywood, she asked me things that I've never said were true. This is when you know you're in contact with a Hollywood person. They'll throw out false information about you that doesn't exist. It never existed and you never claimed, and it's not. She asked me, how long have I been selling ghost hunting equipment? And how long have I been making my own ghost hunting equipment? And do I sell and make ghost hunting equipment this and that here or there? I told her I've never made it, never sold it. So maybe that was a trick question, because a lot of these ghost hunting YouTubers are, they're holding a device in their hand and secretly it's an advertisement and they get sponsorships. I wish I got sponsorships from Tascam. Tascam can send me some free Tascam audio recorders. I like their stuff. Or Rode microphones. Get yourself a Rode microphone. Maybe she was weeding me out to see if I'm just not some shill that sells crap. I don't know. But when I said, I've never sold, I never claimed I sold. I don't know where you got that, but that's when you know you're being contacted by a Hollywood person. They'll claim something that's totally false. She said she liked my interview. She said I did a good job, and then I never heard from her ever again. So that's another way you know you've been contacted by Hollywood. They'll tell you did a great job, and then you'll never hear from them again. But, I still thought it was a good experience. But that's the result of me saying positive things about the Ghost Adventures crew. So, I thought it was pretty cool, pretty interesting. But if you go back a couple months, October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I was in Hollywood doing the Hollywood Boulevard ghost investigation. I walked 1 hour down Hollywood Boulevard. Then I walked 1 hour back, just on the Walk of Fame, the main part of the Walk of Fame. I don't think any ghost investigator has ever done a 2-hour investigation on the Walk of Fame. I did back in October, you know what? It might have been the end of September. It was at the very end of September. It was the first night I got there. And it was actually the same night that I did a grist mill investigation. So I drove from the grist mill, where I conducted like a full 2-hour investigation at the grist mill, communication with the grist mill spirit, and then I immediately did a 2-hour investigation on Hollywood Boulevard. So I've back-to-back like investigated for 4 hours straight. And then a month later, Hollywood contacts me. So I sort of attributed the Hollywood contacting me, not just to the live stream, but to the Hollywood spirits. It's like without making a single phone call, the Hollywood spirits talked to Hollywood human beings via perhaps familiar spirits. I don't know how that method works, but there's some type of intangible communication telephone method where some people on some rare occasion can actually get a gig in Hollywood just from walking down the street and spirits noticing you. I don't know. That's kind of out there. I'm just trying to grasp, at how it happened. I don't know. But I didn't get the gig, so it's not that of an unbelievable story because I wasn't picked. She said she's looking for an equipment expert member. And I do believe I am more equipment inclined. I use my equipment to an extreme degree, just like my musical instruments. I'll pick up a musical instrument, even something as simple as a delay guitar pedal, and I'll tweak with this and play with this for 10 years until I'm an expert at it. I do the same thing with ghost hunting equipment. I'll test it out for years till I really realize how spirits interact with it. I have my ghost hunting equipment underneath my laptop here, and I don't want to get it out. So, Hollywood, yeah. But I think you've heard about the president of Hollywood joke. I don't know, have any of you heard of the president of Hollywood joke? It's a joke, it's almost a meme that I probably first heard of in a Bugs Bunny cartoon when I was a kid. Bugs Bunny wants to be in the movies. So Bugs Bunny immediately gets an interview, and what's on the plaque of the guy talking to Bugs Bunny? The president of Hollywood. It's just a joke. It's a joke on how Hollywood works. There is no president of Hollywood. That doesn't exist. It's not a real title. But I do believe, perhaps, despite it being a joke, that there is a negative entity who's a gatekeeper, who is the president of demons of Hollywood, and that might exist. That might be a real thing. I just watched a Ghost Adventures crew episode on Hollywood. I was like, what place in Hollywood did they go to this time? It's a recent episode. They went to the magic shop. There's a magic shop on Hollywood Boulevard. I've been there many times. Ever since the magic shop in Santa Barbara closed down many years ago. My go-to magic shop used to be, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a magician. So I went to the magic shop on State Street in Santa Barbara dozens of times until it closed. It probably closed 20 years ago. So it didn't close anytime recently. It closed a long time ago. Ever since then, I had to find a new magic shop, and now my new magic shop is the Hollywood Boulevard one. I don't go there too often, but I've been there dozens of times, just like the one in Santa Barbara. And I guess I've never looked for it having a creepy feeling, but after watching the episode, I'm trying to rack my brain. Did I ever notice any creepy feeling? See, they got fake skeletons all over the place, in the entire place. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365, a Halloween shop with costumes and fake skeletons all over the place, and magic, and, clown stuff, and it's just costumes and magic. And their magic department is very small, to be honest, compared to their costume department. So they found some pretty cool evidence Apparently the CCTV captured a spirit shattering what looked to me like one of the magic glass counters. Not the top part of the counter, but the side part of the counter. These are fully glass counters, so you can see the stuff inside. Usually inside of that would be an expensive magic thing you can buy. Like an expensive, magic knife or an expensive magic coin trick or something. Whatever it was. Sometimes they'll put expensive, costume pieces in there as well, but I don't know exactly because it's kind of pixelated and kind of far away. But all you could see was the glass in the middle of the night when it was closed, shattering on its own. And the glass actually flies out, not in. The glass flies out as if something's breaking out of the glass case. Man, I would be interested to know what objects were inside of the case. Even the Ghost Adventures crew didn't ask that. This is footage by the owner who owns the place. The owner tells the Ghost Adventures crew the history of this magic shop and how, like 30 years ago, it was abandoned and homeless people were living in it. Like the top floor and the bottom floor had nothing but homeless people using it as the hobo hotel. And they would like break in through the back and just live there. And they do various horrible things, and people died there. And apparently many people died there, enough where it's haunted. And horrific things happened there. For example, bodies were buried underneath the concrete, which are still permanently there. So that would definitely cause hauntings. So nothing huge happened when the Ghost Adventures crew were there, other than some EVPs via some ghost boxes. Some pretty clear responses. A ghost. Zach is close to the glass counter that was shattered, because clearly the owner wants to know. He gets there in the morning, who the crap broke my glass counter. He checks out the footage, and nobody did. It broke on its own. That's pretty freaking unusual. Pretty good footage, pretty good ghost footage. You can't see anything other than glass flying out of a... It looked like a creature escaped. Pretty freaky. Maybe it was a super haunted object. I don't know. They definitely have some antique looking magic stuff there. Hospital. Yeah, in my last video, I was going to mention Jimmy Kimmel, and I always get cut off. Okay, what happened in the last video is my neighbor started spraying water on her tree with her hose. Literally, I'm about to end my story with Will Smith. I'm about to end my story with my corners of rooms and the REM pod, and I'm going to tie it all up. And my neighbor's spraying freaking water on her tree. So she's like literally like 15 feet away spraying the hose. And I'm like, she can hear everything I'm saying. She's like spying on my entire video. She's listening to me, and she's spraying her tree. And it kind of threw me off, But I did have a dinner reservation, if you will, in the fact that I had to go to a dinner appointment, and had some delicious truffle pizza-like thing. It was super delicious, and I don't go out and have truffle pizza every night, but it's the first time I've ever had truffle in my life. But that magic shop, I've been through it many times, and it does have kind of a creepy feeling. It does have kind of a creepy feeling. So you like Time Traveler Beyond the Seven Suns. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's definitely, I think that's definitely better than my, what's my latest song that I put out? It's As Above, So Below. As Above, So Below. I made the vocal audio too loud. I almost need to redo that, make the background music louder, but it's kind of hard to make anything sound great these days. So Time Traveler Beyond the Seven Suns. I posted that. I posted that a couple years before I posted it on this channel. I posted on a new channel that I created from scratch that was supposed to be just me doing music. And it got like 1 view and 0 subs. And it just sat there. 1 view, 0 subs. So I deleted it and I waited a couple years and I redid the music video and I popped it back on. I popped it up on here. And I don't know what it has. What does it have? 100 views, 200 views? I don't do it for the views, but I made that music myself from scratch. The entire background music took me a long time. It took me a couple months. I was inspired by Beat It, Backbeat. The Michael Jackson song Beat It has a pretty cool drum snare thing going on. 80s, like, just really 80s. Everyone wants a modern day, super modern drum beat. And I wanted to go the exact opposite route. I wanted a Michael Jackson Beat It style drums. So I did that, and then I threw in the keyboard. And that's what I like best about that song is the keyboard. But I guess the rap too. It's just for fun, Here is me just talking about the Corners of Rooms experiment. I might want to go back. And how far are we? We're almost at the end. So that was just me. And, the Corners of Rooms experiment I did in 2018. It's pretty important. It's not the level of Dr. John Dee with Edward Kelly, where they're compiling pages and pages and pages of transcripts between the spirit Medini. I think that was the name of the spirit, Medina, was it Medina? Medina or Medini, something to that effect. I think it was Medina. Was it Medina? See, skeptics are going to say Medina never existed. Dr. John Dee named his daughter after the spirit that he contacted with the investigations. He named his daughter Medinia, something to that effect. I can't remember the exact name, but it's super close. And a couple letters changed, but he named his daughter after the spirit who became his friend through the many hours of transcripts he communicated with this spirit, with Edward Kelly. Skeptics are going to say Edward Kelly was making up the whole thing. Is someone going to make up the whole thing during 12-hour sessions? No one can make up 12 hours of transcripts from multiple nights, time and time again, over and over and over. I think the only fraud that Edward Kelly perpetuated was his claim that he could turn lead into gold, or that he could create gold through true alchemy. That was the desperate time of Edward Kelly's career and life, being connected with Dr. John Dee. A lot of supernatural, paranormal kings were throwing money at anyone with the ability to contact spirits and prove the supernatural. Then the height of that, on a level that a king's going to ask for, is turning lead into gold. And good night to everyone. I know it's super late for you. I just wanted to finish up my last video. Didn't get the chance. And Edward Kelly never had this ability, never had the success of turning lead into gold, because he can't. It's not possible. It's the lead into gold thing, I think it was always a metaphor. It was always a metaphor. Gold was never a literal thing, ever. That's my own personal take on the legend of lead into gold. I don't think gold was ever on the table. Gold is created when a sun is created, and the sun separates particles. It separates lead, it separates copper, it separates nickel, it separates gold, and that's when gold is created. It's a super base element that's created when a sun is formed and when the solid parts turn into planets. That's when gold is created, when a sun is formed. And so no, in no way, shape, or form can an alchemist create gold from scratch or from lead or from any other substance. And the Rosicrucians, I have a book on the Rosicrucians. It's a really good book. And in the book, it says the Rosicrucians likely never existed on any literal level, on any literal sense. The Rosicrucians are almost like a generic urban legend Illuminati level. I know there was an actual group called the Illuminati, but the modern day fake legend of the Illuminati. Sure, there are Illuminati-esque groups that exist, and Mike Myers has a new show where he's making fun of those Illuminati legends. So I'm going to check that out. I'll see if there's anything deeper than comedy. He's just Mike Myers, and he's creating a Illuminati spoof, kind of like how Austin Powers is a spoof on 007. Now he's going to have a spoof on the Illuminati. So I'm interested. I'm definitely interested. I'll see if there's any Illuminatus connections or actual, secret occult connections. Probably not too many, but there, Mike Myers is from Canada, and Canada isn't generically, connected to the supernatural, other than Roger Morneau. In my mind, Roger Morneau wrote a book called A Trip into the Supernatural. I know the lighting's not so great, but Roger Morneau from Montreal, Canada. He had a very prestigious family that lived in Montreal. They owned a lot of land. And he wasn't particularly rich himself, but his parents, and they had a legacy in that area. And Roger Morneau said he was sucked into a devil worship organization in Montreal, Canada, back in the 1940s. And so, I think, if there were devil worshippers on a level where spirits are actually contacting, Roger Morneau's secret society didn't really have a name. They just worshipped the literal devil, with literal demons communicating with a devil priest. Roger says the devil priest was bald. He describes the guy here and there. He wore a lot of black. He probably looked somewhat like the Satanist religion Anton LaVey created in San Francisco and branched into Los Angeles. So Anton LaVey, the priest of this devil worship organization in Montreal in the 1940s, looked sort of like Anton LaVey. But unlike Anton LaVey, who always professed Satan isn't real, despite writing the Satanist Bible, the Satanist Bible was a joke. But it was, at the same time, not a joke. It was anti-Christian, but at the same time, not exactly the opposite of, other than not believing the devil exists. They just wanted to get together and have a really anti-Christian group, and true Church of Satan members don't believe in the devil. They don't believe in Satan. Roger Morneau's organization, even though they had an Anton LaVey-looking guy, he supposedly communicated with the actual devil. Take it or leave it. We got Jack Parsons. You mentioned Jack Parsons. Jack Parsons, he conducted the Babylon working, full-blown super devil worship ceremonies. Jack Parsons most definitely believed the devil was real and most definitely worshipped him. So Anton LaVey is the more modern, hip Satanist that doesn't believe Satan exists. Jack Parsons believed wholeheartedly. He wrote a book, I'm the Antichrist, or something to that effect. I can't remember the title, but it's something about Antichrist and how he professed to be an Antichrist. Rocket engineer by day, secret occult rituals by night. That was Jack Parsons' life. And actually, Jack Parsons' life became a cartoonish meme to an extent. You see Jack Parsons' life being parodied in the movie. It's inspired by a H.P. Lovecraft story. So I'm curious, did H.P. Lovecraft know Jack Parsons personally? And what's the time frame? I always think of H.P. Lovecraft predating Parsons, but perhaps that's not the case. Perhaps they were contemporaries. But in an H.P. Lovecraft story, there is a scientist, genius by day, and then like some secret occult ritual stuff by night. That's Jack Parsons. That's Jack Parsons' life. That's kind of a generic story, plot, character you see in movies today. That was the actual Jack Parsons. But Canada, having a devil worship organization, Mike Myers was in Canada. He was just doing some random stuff. He's from Canada, no big deal. But he was impressed to tell this story on a talk show. Mike Myers said, I was in Canada the other day, and I saw these kids, and they were dressed funny, all in black. They had like weird tattoos, and they're like saying Satan this, Satan that. And they asked Mike Myers, you into Satan too? And Mike Myers was like, and he like just gets out of there and like probably runs away. So that was Mike Myers on a talk show professing how he did bump into some Satanists in Canada. Kind of curious. Probably just some punk kids. I don't know if you've seen the show called The Gemstones. Have you ever seen that Gemstones show on HBO? Because I just got HBO not too long ago. And I binge watched The Gemstones. And the show is definitely very anti-Christian, making fun of Christians to an extreme degree. But if you look beyond that, and there's not too much beyond that, trust me, there's not too much. But it's a pretty funny show. It's pretty funny, other than the Christians say the F word every 5 seconds. And that's part of this spoofing, that Christians are a bunch of hypocrites. That's the message Hollywood wants to present. Hollywood wants to say every Christian's just a super hypocrite piece of crap, and they're just liars. They're walking contradictions and walking liars. But you could say the same thing about Hollywood. But in the Gemstones, there's a guy who converts to Christianity, and before he was a full-blown Satanist with all his goth buddies, and that's probably more something that Mike Myers ran into, as opposed to this super elite organization. Now, this super elite devil worship organization, I believe existed. I believe many lies are interwoven into this story. That Roger Morneau just verbatim mentioned, because he didn't know they were lies. Roger Morneau, I think, definitely was a positive person, okay? He had a prayer chain list of him praying for thousands of people. I don't know if his prayers saved those thousands of people, but that's definitely a positive-minded thing to do. Whether that worked or not, it's not for me to say. But it's not something a manipulative mastermind genius would do, okay? It's something an honest person would do, have a prayer chain list, okay? When someone called up and asked Roger to pray for them, he would do so on the phone immediately. When someone knocked on his door, there's a guy that knocked on Roger's door and said, pray for me, can you help me? And Roger became best friends with this guy, okay? The average, let's say, manipulative D-bag would immediately say, please get off the premises, get out of here, I'm going to call the cops. Or even the average-minded regular person would say, you know what, maybe I'll send you a postcard, or I'll sign your book, but please don't bother me in my personal residence. Roger Morneau became best friends with a guy that drove all the way to his house, like a like a crazy person, knocked on his door and just wanted to talk about supernatural things. I wish Roger were still alive. I would send him a letter. Um, there's a lady who was harassed by poltergeists that sent Roger a letter, and he communicated with her via letter and phone call on a regular basis. He wanted to help her the best he could. But Roger said there is an organization that's the tip-top most elite in the world. That, I believe, was a lie. I don't think Satan's tip-top organization is in Montreal, Canada. But I do believe there probably is a Canadian Illuminati from the perspective of not the 1776 Illuminati, but a generic modern-day Illuminati. When you see a celebrity with zero talent, okay, they either have the best agent in the universe, the best publicists in the universe, the best agency, the best manager, or they got some kind of Illuminati devil connection. Who knows? I'm not the type of person that jumps onto conspiracy theories in any way, shape, or form. That's the last thing I jump to. But man, I definitely see some musicians with zero talent, and just time and time again, they win a Grammy. It's just my taste, okay? Maybe I just don't like that music taste, and maybe millions of other people do. But I see an actor. They have zero acting talent. They just get movie after movie after movie. Perhaps some of these people are connected. There's definitely an MTV connection with Canada. You have to admit, MTV is a crap fest, and everything out of MTV is garbage, all right? Why is MTV cranking out ridiculousness all hours of the day? Because maybe Rob, the skateboarder, whose last name I cannot pronounce, Rob Dredek, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I barely know the guy. I never met him. But Rob something deck, who knows? Maybe he's a member of this Illuminati. I don't know. It's pure speculation. Maybe he's just a hard worker. I did watch a YouTube video on how did he get his show 1,000 times every week on MTV. And it's just all about money. People will not change the channel or they'll leave it running for hours on end when stupid videos of people falling down and getting hit on the head and then them casually saying, haha, that's funny. I don't know. It could be just a sign of the current generation, but if anyone's a member of some super secret Illuminati, it would be that guy, Rob. I don't want to throw it out there. I don't want to say he is, but he's just a type. He is a shadow. He is a prototype of what a Hollywood Illuminati member would look like. Someone who literally just copies America's Funniest Videos and somehow makes billions of dollars off of it. I don't know. I'm just rambling here. At this point, I'm just rambling. The video's almost over. Do you have anything you want to add? Do you guys have any questions? Some of your questions I saw, some of them disappeared so fast I couldn't see them. Any comments? I'll be happy to talk about a couple things. Manly P. Hall has a booklet called Unseen Forces. You know, I've been in contact with unseen forces so much that I snagged up this and I picked it up. I read the whole thing. I can give you a review right now of Manly P. Hall's Unseen Forces. Nowhere in the entire thing does he talk about unseen forces. So no disrespect to Manly P. Hall. He does have some amazing publications. For example, he has one entitled Initiates of the Flame. And I can show you that. I have like a second edition, I believe, of Initiates of the Flame. Sorry, I was looking over here when you asked a question. I'm on my, you know what? I can open up my laptop and I can look at those questions on my laptop. Let me do that right now. Let me just turn the volume to 0 so I don't accidentally mess everything up. Let me look at my channel and I will be able to go to youtube.com, and it's a long, arduous process. I should have had this opened before. But I'm going to be able to now pause it and look at your questions. All right, Masonic television. Eye of the Tiger. Bunch of weirdos. All right. And not too many questions. I don't want to talk about LRH, but I can say this much. That, you ever see that TV show on Leah Remini talking about her former religious persuasion? Someone was asking questions on Twitter with her, and she was having a question and answer session. And someone said, what's going on with LRH? And I responded, are they worshiping him like a god? And Leah Remini confirmed, yeah. In not so many words, she said, yeah, they worship him like a god. Man, they worship him so much that they have his writings laser cut with like diamonds into like impenetrable steel plates or books or something, records, and they have it in like a bulletproof, sealed storage facility just in case there's an apocalypse, so future generations can see LRH's words for eternity. And they believe he's going to be reincarnated and come back, so on and so forth, yada, yada, yada. I don't like to focus on religion and religious figures because, you'll say something bad, and then there'll be someone of that religious persuasion in the comments, and they'll say, oh, you're criticizing my religion. That's my religious freedom. And I gotta, even though in no way, shape, or form do I believe in that particular religious persuasion, I don't want to bother anyone of that religious persuasion, because if you're bothering one person of one religious persuasion, they'll say you're singling them out. Brandon just sent me a clip of a Catholic priest talking about angels. And I listened to it. I listened to it, Brandon. I appreciate that. And, I agree with the Catholic priest on some of the stuff he said, but I disagree on some other things that he said. Let me look at your question. Have you looked into the occult connections? Most definitely. I have looked into the LRH. only Scientologists call them that. I'm just trying to not have keyword searches, all right? These videos, they do keyword searches, and then they'll make the entire video about that keyword search, all right? So I'm trying to be as vague as possible when mentioning LRH. I've probably researched for a good 20 hours on his occult connections, most definitely. And it all started with the Montauk Project books. I've read every single one of the base Montauk Project books, and by base I just mean the early ones, when Preston B. Nichols was still alive. And I read every single one. And they were basically all edited, and some of them fully written by Peter Moon. And I have 2 of the Montauk books signed by Peter Moon, so that's kind of cool. He signed 2 of the books I happened to pick up. But Peter Moon is actually a former, if not current, it's hard to say. He's in a questionable state, but most definitely he's positive about that particular religious persuasion, to the point where he's almost a founding member back in the 70s, or maybe even 60s. So he goes way far back in definitely admiring LRH to an extreme degree. And he also admires to an extreme degree, and this is Peter Moon, one of the main authors of the Montauk Project books, other than Preston B. Nichols. He's the editor of all the books and the publisher of all the books, Sky Books USA. Peter Moon that's too harsh of a word, but he extremely admires and looks up to Aleister Crowley. So he extremely admires and looks up to Aleister Crowley, and extremely admires and looks up to LRH. 2 people I don't look up to in the slightest in any way, shape, or form. But, to each his own. Look up to whoever you want to look up to. Brandon changed his name. No big deal. I mean, my name is John Houston. The reason I changed my channel name to John Houston, because that's my birth name. And if I say John Rasmus this, John Rasmus that, people say, oh, you're in character. You're just a cartoon character. It's not real. Every word out of your mouth is just a pre-scripted gimmick. No, that's not the case. Nothing out of my mouth is a pre-scripted gimmick. Kind of like how Jenna Marbles will have a video about her dogs, and people will say, that's pre-scripted. It's not even her real last name. It's just so people can find my YouTube videos. Now, no one's going to be able to find my YouTube videos because I changed the John Rasmus to John W.F. Houston. That's my birth name. I was born with that. I was named after my two grandfathers. But Brandon sent me a video on angels, and I watched a good portion of it. And the Catholic priest was talking about angels. He said every person is born and assigned a guardian angel at birth. And I've never heard this. A good 5 years back, 4 years back, 3 years back, when I'm talking about every human being assigned a guardian angel and every human being assigned a familiar spirit or a guardian demon, I never read or heard that ever. So it's interesting the Catholics believe in that. I think that's definitely interesting because I never read or heard that ever. I picked it up probably subconsciously from cartoons where you see the angel on the shoulder and the devil on the shoulder. That's probably the first time I've ever been introduced to it. It's just the angel on the shoulder, devil on the shoulder symbolism. And when I was harassed by spirits back in 2011, which the initial spiritual garbage that the gates of hell were opened, it was back in 2010. I just came to the conclusion that everyone has a familiar spirit. I just came to that conclusion. It's just something that naturally clicked and popped into my head. It could have been a message from the spirits, who knows? But I believe it's true. So Brandon sends me a clip on angels. Some priest is talking about angels for an hour straight. It's kind of a long video. And I agree with some of it, and I disagree with some of it. Where do I disagree? Well, the priest says when a priest becomes a priest, he's assigned a higher ranking guardian angel. No longer does he have a regular guardian angel, he now has an archangel. He has a guardian archangel. I don't believe that's necessarily the case in any way, shape, or form. No, I don't think once you become a priest of any particular religion, whether it's Catholic or whatever, I don't think you automatically are assigned an archangel. I don't believe that's the case. So that's one place where I'll disagree. I think you're still guardianed, whatever the galaxies. I think you still have the guardianship of the exact same guardian angel that you were assigned to at birth. I don't think it changes when your status changes. If you become the president of a huge company, the president of a huge religion, the president of a huge country, the mayor of a town, and you have a greater amount of responsibility and you have people's lives and they depend on you, most definitely. Perhaps an archangel then is paying more attention to you to help you out because you have the mantle of now helping out many more people. But I don't think if you're given the title of priest, you're automatically assigned an archangel. But that's just my personal belief. I can't prove it, and he can't prove it. But it must be some type of thing he read in a book, because there's no way he's going to get that information straight from an angel. Okay. Well, I got a kind of a foul comment. Yeah. It says your message is blocked for review because you use too many curse words. See, YouTube is an extremely it just auto blocks bad words. And I'll tell you this much: I don't care about if an ad plays or not, but the people who run the entire channel and beyond me, I run the channel. What I'm saying is YouTube.com. The YouTube.com is ran by computers. It's ran by robots, and they don't even care about anything other than ones and zeros. But they also care about positive numbers in the direction of robots guiding videos to be ad friendly. And if you're not friendly in the persuasion of that here and there, you're going to be black holed into a realm of you're totally cut off, and you're in the abyss, the darkness of the deepest bowels of hell, symbolically. And that's what has happened to my channel to an extreme degree here and there, to the point where I even questioned, did someone like give me a bunch of views on this video or that video? I don't think so. I think just occasionally my videos get semi-viral, and then there's a cutoff point where the algorithm doesn't like your channel, doesn't like your video, doesn't like this, doesn't like that. And definitely if you put curse words in comments, it's going to associate the video with the curse words in that comment. And so there is auto blocking. I don't have any words blocked on my channel. I did a good 10 years ago. I had some, 4-letter words blocked, but I took those out because, some people want to express their words and they want to throw in the F-bomb, and Google doesn't like, or YouTube doesn't like that. The Alphabet company doesn't like that. Whatever. This video is almost over. Let me just talk about ghosts a tiny bit more, a smidge bit more. Man, it's 3:40 a.m. I got to go to bed pretty soon. First time I read Initiates of the Flame by Manly P. Hall. And I visited the Manly P. Hall headquarters in California. Where was it? Where's that Manly P. Hall headquarters? It's near Los Angeles, right? I believe it's near Los Angeles. I definitely went to the Manly P. Hall headquarters. If you go to the Manly P. Hall gift shop, it's tons of books. There's a lot of cool books you can buy. Manly P. Hall wrote a book called The Phoenix, or Rising from the Phoenix, something about Phoenix. And I talked to the director at the Manly P. Hall institution, whatever it's called, and he asked me where I'm from, and I said Tucson. He's like, oh, Tucson, oh, that's close to Phoenix. So the Manly P, there's almost like a Manly P. Hall religion I didn't know existed. I'm just visiting it to check it out, because Manly P. Hall wrote some cool books. I didn't know there's Manly P. Hall religion. There is a Manly P. Hall religion. So in the Manly P. Hall religion, they believe Manly P. Hall will be reincarnated and come back. Yikes. Just because someone is a good author, just because someone is a good actor, a good politician, a good comedian, a good this, a good that, a good here, and a good there, it doesn't mean they're going to be reincarnated and come back. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate that. But the first time I first time I read Manly P. Hall's book, The Initiates of the Flame, I read this while at work, because I worked at a desk in an office a number of years ago. I picked this up and I was able to read it. See, we have breaks, and I read it during the breaks. There were, if you're a good enough worker, you could have YouTube playing at the same time that you're waiting for work to appear. And instead of watching YouTube videos, I read. And I read this entire book in one day of work, easy. It's a very short book, Initiates of the Flame. It's only, it's spaced out pretty big with borders. It's only 72 pages. Wow, 72 pages, yikes. And I noticed a lot of coincidences with the page numbers, probably starting with 72 pages. 72 is a very sacred number with people like Manly P. Hall. He has a scarab on the last page. And it's an early edition because there's red. It's a red border. Early editions of these old books have red in them. Red is an indication of an early edition, like a first edition, second edition. if there's no red in these old books, you know it's just a copy. This is a very early edition. Very valuable book, actually. We have some type of... okay. I know what this is. This is some belief that Manly P. Hall and other occultists and New Age theosophy types would talk about and believe in. That we have Jesus here, and we have other religious deities. We have some Indian deity, hand in hand, next to Jesus. We're talking a blue four-armed deity. I don't know the name, but it's a pretty famous deity from India. Next to, of course, you have to have the unknown Emmanuel guy. That's not Jesus, but it's a different Emmanuel. I can't remember what his name is. And he's next to Buddha. We got Buddha. Oh, we got Moses. I've never seen too many depictions with Moses hanging out, but we got Moses. So we got Moses chilling with the Ten Commandments on this far side. We got Moses right here. Moses is hanging out. I know it looks really blurry, but this is Initiates of the Flame. So what these are Ascended Masters. So you're going to be familiar with the concept of Ascended Masters. These are some Ascended Masters. 1934. Phoenix Press, Los Angeles, California. Yeah, the Manly P. Hall Center is in Los Angeles. So this is the second edition. First edition was 1922. This second edition is 1934. It's a very valuable copy. And because it's such an old original copy, Manly assigned page numbers with information. Like Jesus died at age 33. On page 33, he talks about Jesus. Stuff like that. You're like, that's not a coincidence. So what does 72 mean? It ends with 72. It ends on page 72. 72 is how many demons are in the Goetia, the demonic texts of the Key of Solomon. There's 72 demons. In the Kabbalah, there's 72 names of God. So 72 is a very sacred number with these New Agers, with these occultists. I've seen the number 72 pop up time and time again lately, in the past couple months. It could just be a trick. It could just be I'm looking for the number 72. You know that movie where Jim Carrey sees the number everywhere? What was it, 27? Does he see the number 27 or is it 23, 20 something? I haven't seen that movie in so long I forgot what the number is. I think it's 27. But it doesn't mean anything. If you see the number 14 everywhere, if you see the number 77 everywhere, the number 32 everywhere, subconsciously you're looking for it. Subconsciously you are looking for it. I knew someone that saw 1134? Yeah, I knew someone that saw 1134 on the clock constantly. And backwards, 1134 is hell. Hell. Pretty freaky. I don't know, pretty freaky, I guess. If the 4 is an H, I guess, right? Upside down and backwards, it's hell. I think they're just subconsciously looking for that. It's 11:47 right there. Right here, it's 3:48 a.m. It's way too late. I gotta go to bed pretty soon. I gotta go to bed. But one day I'm gonna show you my book collection. I'm gonna end this video pretty soon to the point where I'm holding my phone. But I'm gonna show you my book collection one day. I'm gonna show you the whole thing. Here's a cheap book I got for $1, The Black Arts. Here's a recent book I got, The Keys to the Gateway of Magic by Dr. Skinner. You might have heard of Dr. Stephen Skinner. This came off his personal shelf to me, and it's signed. I'm going to do a review of all these books. I have read probably, almost half of these books. I haven't read all of them, but I'll do a review. Here are my L.W. DeLawrence, and I have more than this, but these are all L.W. DeLawrence. This is definitely a nice copy. It's probably way too dark. You probably can't see it. Stay tuned. More episodes coming soon. Talk about spiritual subjects. I'm a ghost investigator. I consider myself a semi-professional ghost hunter. Perhaps one day I'll be professional at it. Perhaps I'm going to focus on being an author and just be a publisher, self-publisher, and publish my own books and just be an author. Maybe I'll just be an author for the rest of my life. My book is close to done. I just have to look for any typos, spelling errors. We're on that level, or we're that far along. The publishing factory wants to print ASAP. Of course, it's just a money exchange. They want to get the money and print my book. They're always ready and happy, willing, and just give us the money and we'll print anything you got. But I don't want to print garbage. I don't want to print something with a bunch of typos. At the same time, I have to save up my money because times are not going so hot with money, okay? But I'll just have to eat some ramen, save some money, and I will be able to get my book self-published. Stay tuned. More episodes coming soon. I'm trying to think of possibly a way to rebrand the channel. Mysterialis, I love. I love the name Mysterialis. But YouTube doesn't love the name Mysterialis. Google doesn't love the name Mysterialis. When I type in Mysterialis on my TV, it's a totally different search on your TV. Have you ever looked at YouTube on your TV and done the streaming, just search? Have you ever looked at YouTube through your streaming TV? On your TV, the search algorithm, the search filters, the search blocking, whatever the case, it's totally different ballgame. When I type Erasmus, nothing pops up. When I type Mysterialis, nothing pops up. Zero. It's pretty bad. So you must have to go through some gatekeeping and clearance on the TV side. It's literally the streaming program running for your TV. It's totally different than your phone and your computer. You're going to have to come up with a new name, rebrand the channel. It's going to be the exact same channel, but it might be more fine-tuned and focused on spirit things, book things, or ghost hunting. We will see. Stay tuned. More episodes coming soon. Thank you for watching. Be seeing you.